Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My ex and I were together for 4 years. We weren't just dating, we were living together for 3.5 years, had moved across the entire country together from the East Coast to Southern California, and our finances were completely mixed up. I'm talking joint bank accounts, shared bills, the whole 9 yards. I made about 2.5 times what he did working in tech, so I ended up covering most of our expenses, but I didn't mind. I thought we were building a life together. Then January hit like a truck. Out of nowhere, he sat me down and told me he wanted to break up. No warning signs, no big fights, nothing. He just said we were on different paths in life, and he didn't see a future with me anymore. I was devastated. 4 years down the drain, and I had to figure out how to untangle our entire life together. The breakup was supposed to be amicable. We agreed to stay civil while we sorted everything out. I moved out in February, which was a nightmare in itself. Finding a new place in Southern California on short notice while emotionally destroyed was not fun. During one of our last real conversations in March, I brought up the practical stuff we needed to handle. The biggest issue was his car insurance. He had added me to his BMW policy years ago, and it was keeping his rates way lower. Anyone who lives in Southern California knows how crazy expensive car insurance is here, so I get why he wanted to keep me on there. But I couldn't stay tied to him financially forever. I told him that I needed him to remove me from his car insurance by the end of May. I explained that I couldn't stay on his policy indefinitely. He said he understood and promised he would take care of it. I also brought up the money he owed me. I had covered his part of our cross-country move, the down payment for his BMW, and that entire weekend for his sister's wedding because he couldn't afford it at the time. I told him I needed him to start paying me back by July. He agreed that it was fair and said he would start making payments then. Everything seemed settled. About 2 weeks later, he called me with a request that made my blood boil. He told me he was moving out of our old apartment next month and had found a roommate situation across town that would be way cheaper for him. Then he asked if I could help him move. This man broke my heart, ended our 4-year relationship out of nowhere, and now he wanted me to help him pack up and move on with his life. I asked him if he was serious. I pointed out that he wanted me to help him move after he had dumped me. He said he just thought since we were trying to stay friends, maybe I would help. I told him we weren't friends. I explained that he had broken up with me, destroyed my life plans, and now wanted me to help him move on. I said that wasn't how things worked. He responded by telling me I didn't have to get so emotional about it. That word, emotional, like my feelings didn't matter at all. I told him he didn't deserve me as a friend. I said I had been way too nice about the whole situation and that I was done overextending myself for someone who clearly didn't care about how much they had hurt me. That's when he blocked me. On everything. Phone, social media, all of it. Fine by me, honestly. I was tired of pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. The next few months were rough. I threw myself into therapy, hung out with friends more, picked up new hobbies. Slowly but surely, I started feeling like myself again. By July, I was in a really good place emotionally. I had moved on. But then I remembered our agreements. It was July and I hadn't heard a word from him about the money he owed me. More importantly, I realized I should check if he had actually removed me from his car insurance like he promised. I called his insurance company and gave them my information. The representative told me that I was still listed as a driver on the policy. After everything, he couldn't even keep this one simple promise. He was still using me to keep his rates low while completely cutting me out of his life in every other way. I told the representative I wanted to be removed from the policy immediately. She said she could process that right away but wanted me to know it would affect the primary policyholder's rates. When I asked how much of an increase we were talking about, she told me it would go up about $200 per month. $200. That's $2,400 a year he'd been saving by keeping me on his policy without my permission for 2 extra months. Money he clearly thought was more important than keeping his word to his ex-girlfriend who he'd already hurt enough. The representative processed my removal immediately. When I was cleaning up my streaming accounts later that week, I noticed something funny. His Netflix was still logged into my smart TV from when we lived together. I'd completely forgotten about it. I could see his viewing history right there, all his shows, his preferences, everything. I thought about logging him out immediately, but then I had a better idea. I went into his account settings and changed the language preference to Mandarin. Then I changed it back, then to Korean, then back to English. I did this a few times, just imagining his confusion when his Netflix interface kept switching languages randomly. Finally, I changed it to Mandarin one last time and logged him out permanently. It was petty, sure, but after months of him using my insurance benefits without permission, while refusing to pay back the thousands he owed me, it felt like the least I could do. I never did see a penny of that money he owed me, but honestly, I don't care anymore. My wife and I have been married for 8 years now, and we have 2 daughters together. We love our girls to pieces, but when we were trying for kids, my wife really wanted at least one boy. She never made a huge deal about it, but I could tell she was hoping for that mix of one boy and one girl. My wife comes from a family of all sisters. There are 4 of them total, and she's the second oldest. Her younger sister just had her first baby 2 years ago, a little girl, and has been pregnant again for the past few months. The whole family was excited about the second grandchild, especially since this would be the first time in generations that anyone in their family might have a boy. Last Saturday was the big gender reveal party. My sister-in-law and her husband went all out with the decorations, games, and of course, the big moment was the confetti cannons. All the aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents were there. My wife and I brought our daughters, who were excited to find out if they'd have a boy or girl cousin. When the moment came and those blue confetti pieces shot out everywhere, you could see my sister-in-law's face just drop. I mean, she tried to recover quickly and put on a smile, but it was obvious she was disappointed. She had been talking for months about how she was sure it was going to be a girl, how she already had all the girl stuff, how easy it would be to just add another daughter to the mix. My sister-in-law spent the rest of the party kinda going through the motions. She smiled when people congratulated her, thanked everyone for coming, but you could tell her heart wasn't really in it. Her husband kept trying to cheer her up, talking about how excited he was to have a son, but she just nodded along. The drive home was about 40 minutes, and for the first half my wife was going on and on about how weird it was that her sister was so visibly disappointed. She said she just didn't understand why her sister looked so upset, and that a healthy baby should be all that matters. I agreed that her sister probably just had her heart set on another girl. My wife kept talking about how shallow it was to act disappointed like that, and how she would never act that way at her own gender reveal. She seemed genuinely bothered by her sister's reaction. I was listening to all this, and I started thinking back to when we found out we were having our second daughter. My wife had been so sure it was going to be a boy that time. She had even started looking at boy clothes and nursery themes. When the ultrasound tech told us it was another girl, my wife got really quiet and didn't say much for the rest of the appointment. I remember the car ride home from that appointment too. My wife had said she was fine, but then spent the next week talking about how she'd need to return some of the boy stuff she'd already bought. She kept mentioning how all her friends had at least one of each, and how she wondered what it would be like to never experience raising a son. So sitting there listening to her criticize her sister, I felt like I had to say something. I told her that she had kind of acted the same way when we found out our second was going to be a girl. My wife turned to look at me like I just said the most ridiculous thing in the world. She asked what I was talking about and said that was completely different. I reminded her how she was disappointed too, and how she barely talked for days after that appointment. She got defensive and said we weren't talking about her, that this was about how her sister acted today. I explained that I was just pointing out that she had reacted similarly when she didn't get what she was hoping for. That's when her voice got that edge to it that I knew meant trouble. She accused me of always doing that, of always turning everything back on her. She said we were talking about her sister being ungrateful, and I had to make it about something she did wrong years ago. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to attack her, just pointing out that maybe we shouldn't judge her sister so harshly since we'd been in a similar situation. But she wasn't having it. She insisted it wasn't the same thing at all because she was disappointed privately and didn't make a scene at a party in front of everyone. I pointed out that her sister didn't really make a scene either, just looked disappointed for a few minutes. My wife shot back that it was way more than a few minutes, that her sister was moping around for the entire party and it was embarrassing. The rest of the car ride was dead silent. When we got home, she went straight upstairs without saying anything. I put the girls to bed, and when I came up later, she was already pretending to be asleep. The next morning, she was still giving me the cold shoulder. Finally, over coffee, I tried to bring it up again. I told her I wasn't trying to start a fight yesterday and that I just thought maybe we should cut her sister some slack. She asked if I just couldn't help myself and accused me of always having to be right about everything. I said that wasn't what this was about at all. She asked what it was about then because from where she was sitting, it looked like I was more concerned with defending her sister than supporting my own wife. I realized there was no winning this conversation. In her mind, she had every right to be disappointed about our baby's gender privately, but her sister was wrong for showing any disappointment publicly. The double standard was incredible, but pointing it out just made me the bad guy. 3 days later, my sister-in-law called my wife to apologize for being weird at the party. She said she was just surprised and that she was actually excited about having a boy now. My wife accepted the apology and spent 20 minutes on the phone talking about how understanding and supportive she was. After she hung up, she looked at me with this satisfied expression and told me that her sister had admitted she was wrong. She said maybe next time I'd trust her judgment instead of always taking everyone else's side. I just nodded and went back to reading my book. I'm a single mom to my 14-year-old daughter. Her dad left when she was 8, so it's been just us two for the past 6 years. We've always been close, but when her father walked out, we became even tighter. She's been through enough abandonment for one lifetime, and I've made it my mission to shield her from any more unnecessary pain. My daughter has always been self-conscious about her appearance. Like most teenagers, she goes through phases of hating everything about herself. But one thing she's always loved is her hair. It's this gorgeous auburn color with natural waves that cascade down to her waist. She takes incredible care of it, spending at least 30 minutes every morning making sure it looks perfect. It's one of the few things that makes her feel confident about herself. That Saturday, we were doing our usual grocery shopping at the local supermarket. My daughter had her hair down, and I noticed she was getting compliments from other shoppers. An elderly lady at the produce section told her she had beautiful hair. A teenage cashier mentioned how much she wished her hair looked like that. My daughter was beaming with pride, and it warmed my heart to see her so happy. We were in the shampoo aisle when it happened. My daughter was looking at different hair products while I was checking prices on conditioner. This woman, probably in her 40s with badly bleached blonde hair that looked fried from too much processing, approached us. The woman said she noticed my daughter's hair. I thanked her and mentioned that my daughter takes really good care of it. But then the woman made a strange comment about how it wasn't fair that some people get all the good genes while others have to struggle. I should have picked up on the weird tone in her voice, but I was distracted by comparing ingredient lists. My daughter looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. The woman continued complaining about how she'd spent thousands of dollars trying to get her hair to look half as good as my daughter's. She said my daughter probably didn't even appreciate what she had. I told her we really needed to finish our shopping and tried to move away. That's when things went completely insane. This woman reached out and grabbed a handful of my daughter's hair, yanking it hard enough that my daughter stumbled backward. My daughter cried out in pain and asked what the woman was doing. The crazy woman responded by saying that maybe if she pulled some of it out, they'd be more even. She ranted about how life wasn't fair and that pretty girls like my daughter needed to learn that lesson. The mama bear instinct kicked in immediately. I didn't think, I just reacted. I grabbed the woman by the shoulders and shoved her backward into the shelf of shampoo bottles. She hit it hard enough that several bottles fell to the floor. I yelled at her to get her hands off my daughter right now. The woman screamed back that I couldn't touch her and threatened to call the police. I told her that was fine because I was about to call them myself since she had just assaulted a minor. By this point, other shoppers had gathered around us. My daughter was crying and holding her scalp where the woman had pulled her hair. I could see red marks on her head. A store employee rushed over to see what was happening. The woman immediately started playing the victim, claiming I had attacked her for no reason and that she was just complimenting my daughter's hair. When the store employee asked if that was true, I was about to defend myself when another shopper spoke up. It was the elderly lady who had complimented my daughter earlier. She said that wasn't what happened at all, and that she saw the whole thing. She explained how the woman had grabbed my daughter's hair and yanked it hard, and that I was just protecting my child. A teenage boy with his phone out also spoke up, saying he got it all on video and confirming that the crazy woman definitely pulled my daughter's hair first. When the woman realized there were witnesses and video evidence, she started ranting about how I was just jealous because my daughter was prettier than I'd ever be, and that some people needed to be taken down a peg. I asked her if she was seriously admitting she attacked my child because she was jealous of a 14-year-old. The store manager arrived and asked us all to wait while they reviewed the security footage. The woman kept ranting about how unfair life was and how pretty girls needed to be humbled. She was completely unhinged. When the police arrived 20 minutes later, they watched the security footage and interviewed the witnesses. The video clearly showed the woman initiating contact by grabbing my daughter's hair. The teenage boy also shared his phone video, which captured the woman's admission about being jealous. The police officer told the woman she needed to come with them because she was being charged with assault on a minor. The woman protested that it was ridiculous and claimed all she did was touch my daughter's hair. She complained that people were too sensitive these days. The officer explained that she had physically grabbed and pulled a child's hair hard enough to leave marks, which constituted assault. When they put handcuffs on the woman, she kept screaming about how unfair everything was. She yelled that my daughter didn't deserve such pretty hair and that she hoped it would all fall out someday. The store manager apologized and gave us our groceries for free. Several other customers came up to check on my daughter and offered their contact information in case we needed more witnesses. My daughter was shaken up, but okay. The red marks on her scalp faded within a few hours, but the emotional impact lasted longer. She didn't want to wear her hair down for a few weeks after the incident, which broke my heart. We found out later that the woman had been charged with assault and had to pay a fine. She also got banned from the store chain. My wife and I got married when I was 38 and she was 33. For the first few years, we weren't really thinking about kids. We were both climbing the corporate ladder, buying our first house, taking vacations to Europe twice a year. Kids felt like something we'd deal with later. When I hit 42 and my wife turned 37, she started bringing up the baby conversation more often. At first, it was casual mentions about how cute our friends' kids were or pointing out baby clothes in stores. Then it became more direct. She wanted to start trying. I figured it would happen naturally and quickly like it seemed to for everyone else we knew. Month after month, we got our hopes up, only to be crushed by negative pregnancy tests. My wife started researching everything about fertility. She bought ovulation strips, a special thermometer that took her temperature to the 10th of a degree, and downloaded 3 different apps to track her cycle. Our medicine cabinet looked like a fertility clinic. After 6 months of trying with no luck, my wife went to see her doctor. That's when we found out about the fibroids. The doctor explained that these growths in her uterus were probably preventing implantation. Surgery was our only option. The procedure cost us $3,000, even with insurance. My wife had to take 2 weeks off work to recover. During those 2 weeks, she researched everything about post-surgery fertility. She joined online forums where women shared their experiences. She read medical journals that I couldn't even pronounce the titles of. The doctor said we had to wait 3 months before trying again. Those 3 months felt like an eternity. My wife became obsessed with preparing her body. She started taking prenatal vitamins, cut out caffeine completely, and began doing yoga every morning at 6 a.m. She made me start taking men's fertility supplements that cost $40 a bottle. When we finally got the green light to start trying again, the pressure was intense. Everything had to be perfectly timed. My wife would text me at work when her app said she was ovulating. I'd have to drop whatever I was doing and rush home. It stopped being about love or intimacy and became this clinical procedure. After 8 months of this routine, we finally got a positive test. We were over the moon. My wife immediately made a doctor's appointment and started planning the nursery. We told our parents and close friends. Then at 7 weeks, we lost a baby. The miscarriage devastated both of us, but it hit my wife especially hard. She blamed herself even though the doctor assured us it wasn't anything she did. She spent weeks researching miscarriage statistics and causes. She found out that at her age, the risk was higher than she'd realized. We took a break from trying for 2 months while my wife grieved. When we started again, she was even more intense about tracking everything. She bought a fertility monitor that cost $200. She started taking her temperature at exactly 6 a.m. every single day, even on weekends. She tracked everything in a detailed spreadsheet, the dates, her cycle length, when we tried, what supplements she was taking. Month after month, the tests came back negative. My wife would lock herself in the bathroom and cry. I felt helpless watching her go through this emotional roller coaster. The stress was affecting our marriage. We started fighting about small things. I was exhausted from the pressure to perform on command. My wife was frustrated with my apparent lack of urgency about the whole situation. By the time I turned 47 and she turned 42, we'd been trying for almost 3 years. Our friends with kids would complain about sleepless nights and diaper changes, not realizing how much we'd give anything for those problems. Family gatherings became awkward when relatives would ask when we were going to have kids. My wife started avoiding baby showers because they were too painful. That Tuesday afternoon, I was in back-to-back meetings trying to finish a project that was already a week overdue. My phone buzzed with a text from my wife. The message was short and urgent, telling me to come home immediately. Before I could even respond, another text came through asking me to pick up pregnancy tests on my way. I knew what this meant. Her app was telling her she was ovulating, and we had maybe a 4-hour window to try. I looked at my computer screen full of unfinished work and felt this wave of frustration wash over me. I was tired of my life revolving around my wife's fertility schedule. I was tired of rushing home to perform like some kind of breeding animal. I was tired of getting my hopes up just to be disappointed again. But I grabbed my keys and headed to the store anyway. The parking lot was packed because it was rush hour and everyone was stopping to grab groceries on their way home from work. Inside the store, I had to hunt down someone to unlock the pregnancy test case. The teenage employee who finally helped me seemed embarrassed about the whole thing. She fumbled with the keys and kept looking around like she was worried someone would see her. When I finally got the tests, every checkout line was at least 15 people deep, except for one register run by this older woman who had clearly been working retail for decades. She was the type who felt the need to comment on every single item she scanned. I watched her tell the customer in front of me all about how she used the same brand of pasta sauce. Then she gave unsolicited advice about laundry detergent to the person before that. But her line was moving faster than the others, so I stayed put. When it was finally my turn, I just wanted to pay and get out of there. I was already running late and I knew my wife was probably checking the clock every 5 minutes. The cashier picked up the pregnancy test box and immediately got this knowing smile on her face. She made some joke about how they obviously weren't for me, chuckling at her own humor. I gave her a flat response, hoping she'd take the hint that I wasn't in the mood for small talk. Instead, she kept going. She started gushing about how exciting it must be and asked if we were hoping for a boy or a girl. She even asked if this was our first. That question hit me like a punch to the gut. First, she asked if only she knew this was probably our 100th pregnancy test over 3 years. If only she knew about the surgery, the miscarriage, the monthly disappointments. If only she knew about the fertility treatments we were considering that would cost us $10,000. If only she knew how this simple question was like salt in an open wound. Something inside me just snapped. I was done being polite. I was done pretending everything was fine. I was done with strangers making assumptions about my life. I looked her straight in the eye and told her the tests were actually for my 16-year-old daughter. I explained that we needed to find out if her 19-year-old unemployed boyfriend had gotten her pregnant. I added that we were all just thrilled about the whole situation, throwing in some profanity for emphasis. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The woman behind me in line gasped loud enough for half the store to hear. She muttered something about being shocked. The cashier's face went through what looked like every color in a crayon box before settling on this deep, purple shade. Her eyes got so wide I thought they might pop out of her head. Her mouth fell open and just stayed that way. She stood there completely frozen, still holding the pregnancy test box. I didn't say another word. I grabbed my receipt and the bag and walked straight toward the exit. I made it about halfway across the parking lot before I started laughing. Not just chuckling, but full-on belly laughs that made me have to stop walking. The look on that cashier's face was something I'd remember forever. For the first time in months, I felt like I'd actually won something. When I got home, my wife was waiting in the living room with that familiar, anxious expression. She asked what took me so long and why I seemed to be in such a good mood. I told her the whole story while we went upstairs. At first she looked horrified, but by the end she was laughing so hard she had tears streaming down her face. It was the first time we'd really laughed together since before the miscarriage. We took the test and waited the longest 3 minutes of our lives. When we saw those two pink lines, we both just stared at it. After 3 years of trying, it felt almost too good to be true. My wife immediately called her doctor to schedule the first appointment. This time we decided not to tell anyone until we made it past the first trimester. 9 months later our daughter was born, healthy and perfect. She's 5 now, and every time we drive past that store, my wife and I still crack up remembering that cashier's face. I'm a retired contractor in my 60s, and after 40 years of dealing with difficult clients and unreasonable deadlines, I thought I'd seen it all. These days I spend most of my time at our little cabin up north, fixing things that don't really need fixing and enjoying the peace and quiet. My wife and I bought the place 5 years ago as our escape from city life, and it's become our sanctuary. Every couple of weeks during summer, I make the 3-hour drive up there to check on things and do maintenance. It's a simple 2-lane highway most of the way, cut in through farmland and forest. Usually it's a relaxing drive that helps me transition from city stress to country calm. This particular morning started like any other. I left the house at 8:30, grabbed a coffee, and hit the highway. Traffic was light, which was perfect. I set my cruise control to 120 kilometers per hour and settled in for the drive. The weather was beautiful, and I was looking forward to spending the weekend replacing some deck boards and maybe doing some fishing. About an hour into the drive, I came up behind a big transport truck. The passing lane was clear, so I signaled and started to overtake. That's when things went sideways. This white pickup truck came out of nowhere and started riding my bumper. I'm talking dangerously close, like he was trying to crawl into my back seat. I could see him in my rearview mirror, waving his arms around and clearly yelling about something. His face was angry and frustrated. I kept my speed steady. I wasn't going slow by any means, and I was already in the process of passing the truck. But this guy was acting like I'd personally insulted his mother or something. When there was barely enough room, he swerved around me on the right side, cutting dangerously close to the transport truck. The truck driver had to hit his brakes, and I could hear the air brakes hissing. The pickup driver then shot past me in the inside lane, rolled down his window, and gave me the middle finger. But he wasn't done. Once he got in front of me, he started brake checking. You know, hitting his brakes for no reason just to mess with the person behind him. Each time he did it, I had to slow down to avoid rear-ending him. It was dangerous and completely unnecessary. That's when I noticed something interesting. Across the entire back window of his pickup was a big decal with a company name and phone number. The lettering was huge, probably meant for advertising. Some kind of landscaping business. Now I've been around long enough to know that road rage usually isn't worth the trouble. Most of the time I just shake my head and let idiots be idiots. But this guy had really crossed the line with his dangerous driving, and seeing that company information gave me an idea. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number while keeping a safe distance behind him. The phone rang twice before someone answered. I asked the man who picked up if he was currently driving a white pickup on Highway 12 heading north. He told me no, he was at the shop in town, and asked why I was calling. I explained that someone driving a white pickup with his company name all over the back window had just spent the last few minutes driving like a complete maniac. I described the tailgating, dangerous passing, brake checking, and all the reckless behavior I'd witnessed. There was a pause. The man asked if I was serious about what I was telling him. I told him I was dead serious and offered to give him the license plate number if he needed it. I explained that this person was going to cause an accident or give his business a really bad reputation. The guy sounded genuinely upset and embarrassed. He told me he knew exactly who that was and thanked me for calling. He promised he would deal with it right away. I gave him my contact information in case he needed more details and hung up. Here's where it gets good. The pickup was still ahead of me, still driving aggressively and weaving between lanes. Maybe 2 minutes after I hung up, I saw the driver answer his phone. What happened next was beautiful. I watched the guy's whole demeanor change. He went from aggressive road warrior to deflated balloon in about 10 seconds. Even from a distance, I could see him gesturing frantically, clearly trying to explain himself. His free hand was waving around like he was conducting an orchestra. Then he pulled into the right lane and slowed way down. I mean, he went from speeding and weaving to driving like a little old lady on her way to church. When I passed him, I looked over at him. The guy looked miserable. He was still on the phone, still gesturing, but now his shoulders were slumped and he looked like someone had just told him his dog died. I'm pretty sure I heard him apologizing to his boss, but I can't be certain. I drove past him grinning from ear to ear. The rest of my trip was peaceful, and I didn't see the pickup again. When I got to the cabin, I was still chuckling about the whole thing. I told my wife the story, and she just shook her head and said, I was getting too old to be starting trouble on the highway. But even she was laughing by the end. The thing is, I don't usually go out of my way to cause problems for people, but when someone drives that dangerously and thinks they can intimidate other drivers just because they're having a bad day, well, sometimes what goes around comes around. I spent a great weekend at the cabin, got those deck boards replaced, and caught a nice bass on Sunday morning. The drive home was completely uneventful, which was exactly how I liked it. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.